Okay. Necrit's Riot MMO interview. Now, I've been told that this is like super fucking important for the Riot MMO, and he got to talk directly to the devs, and I'm curious to what they have to say, especially since Greg Street ran the fuck away from the Riot MMO, and I'm curious as to figure out why. Because if you think about the story of how this has worked, Ghostcrawler was a big deal in WoW. He also hated druids. Good on him. He had some sense in his head. But then he started working, like, this was supposed to be his magnum opus, his final project before he retires, is the Riot MMO. Then, the Riot MMO, he like made a post about the Riot MMO team and saying, yeah, I've loved my time there for personal reasons and family reasons. I'm going to be leaving the Riot MMO. And then almost immediately turns around and starts making another MMO, which means something happened there. They did something that either Ghostcrawler didn't like or Ghostcrawler did something that they didn't like. So I'm very curious to see what the devs who are working on the game currently have to say, especially from Necrit. I used to watch a lot of his old League of Legends lore videos. I think he makes good shit. Let's see what he has to say.
So, on my journey to Riot's headquarters, I had a chance to talk to some of Riot's teams. And of course, one of those teams was Riot's MMO team. And while it was really awesome to talk to them, luckily we even had some time to do an interview. Unfortunately, the interview was recorded in one of their meeting rooms, which meant that it was very echoey. I mean,
Nice.
Can we just like go one by one to like introduce yourselves in your position?
Sure. I'm VJ Tucker, I'm the EP of the MMO.
Fortunately, however, the world does have the technology to salvage the audio. And so the final result should be totally fine.
I was actually wondering if he was going to use the de-reverb setting and take it into something like Fairlight or Audacity or something like that and try and fix it, or whether he was just going to leave it raw.
Know that it is not a studio quality. It is literally my laptop and a USB microphone in a square room. And of course, since it is hard to get some info on Riot's MMO, I tried to push them with the questions a little bit, just to see what we can learn. But I knew they wouldn't be able to talk about any specifics. So my questions had to be as broad as possible.
After the Baldur's Gate 3 release, I'm gonna be very upset if he didn't look one of them in the eyes and be like, "Can you fuck the volley bear?" Because if you can't, your game's gonna fail.
But even so, I was still trying to walk on the edge. Sometimes you'll see the devs laughing about the fact that I am very close to the line, and 3 times it actually happened. I asked a question which had to be cut out, but the follow-up conversations were fine. So be ready for the fact that sometimes there will be some edits and cuts and it will break the pacing. But ultimately, I am pretty...
That I can't blame him for. That you know what? If that happened 3 separate times, I'm going to say this is probably going to be a very informative interview. Because what it means is that the devs accidentally stepped over the line and said something that they're not allowed to say. And to even get this interview, Necrit probably had to sign some waiver saying that there's certain information that he can't release, right? So this is probably going to have some valuable shit in it.
Pretty happy with what I was able to put together. And honestly, I had an absolute blast talking to these guys.
Can you just like go one by one to like introduce yourselves in your position?
Sure. I'm VJ Tucker, I'm the EP of the MMO.
I'm Mark Yenner, I'm the game design director for the project. Greg Fallis, art director.
And I'm Ant Reynolds-Laday, I'm a writer.
Okay, so first off, first impression of all of this, I'm liking what I'm seeing because all of these people look like they've lost a portion of their soul to game development. I mean, like, you remember what the guy looked like from The Witcher, right? Let me see if I can find a picture of him. Here we go. It's actually easier to pull up than I thought. Yeah, Marcin Iwinski, hold on. Yeah, this guy right here. This man right here, right? This is how you know the game's gonna be good. is you see this shit. Let me just do that. You see this shit going down, and you know for a fact the game that's coming out is going to be fucking amazing. Look at this man by Witcher 3. There is no soul in here left. His whole body has been put through a cheese grater of game development. This poor man there are people who go through a divorce, lose the wife, dogs, kid, and house, and don't look this bad. Game development, not even once. You're probably safe on crack cocaine. But you see these people? These guys are at like the Witcher 2 phase right now. So you know for a fact that they're going in the right direction, at least from first impressions.
Right. So, I might have made an oopsie. Strong start. I released the video. Kind of started an avalanche of hype out of nowhere. How did you guys take this? Was there you know, how much damage have I caused on accident?
Not even close. We thought it was awesome. We immediately shared it among the team. We watch it for inspiration as a reminder of what player hype is for the space. More than anything, you raise the bar for us, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's the right kind of response for a dev to have, is to look at someone creating content on the thing you're working on and to be super fucking excited about it, because all they're doing is bringing more attention to your game, right? Nintendo has no fucking idea how this works. That's why they keep on copyright striking everyone on YouTube, not understanding that these people playing their game are free advertising. These guys at their core probably understand the fact that this dude is so invested that he made a whole ass video about this is amazing advertising for their Riot MMO, and it means more people are likely to be thinking about it, looking forward to it, and wanting to play it in the future.
We love it, but
You're right, it's a good vibe. It's a good vibe.
So up until that point, we're in a safe space where you were kind of fine because people knew it was happening, but no one really took it seriously.
Yeah.
Have you actually taken any of the feedback you got so far into consideration? I don't know how many people really gave feedback. I mean, people did give feedback on the ML. Did you take something into consideration already?
Yeah, we always have. I think that's one of the most important things that we can do, is listen to our players along the way and figure out when we should respond and integrate it in and when we shouldn't.
Right.
That's the hard part of our jobs. But definitely ignoring the feedback is us failing.
Yeah, that's the cookie cutter answer, but that's also the right answer, right? I don't know. There's not much you can say on specifics, because there's going to be a million people asking for a million different things. But it's it's the same as a YouTube comment on a video. I can speak about it from that perspective because of my videos. Every now and then you will get a really, really shitty comment, but at its core, the complaint behind the shitty comment is actually super valuable, because they're telling you that you're doing something wrong, and because of that you can improve. So hopefully they're doing it in the same mechanism here. Nintendo, like that US airline that sold the lifetime pass and then decided to revoke it, instead of base advertisement on them holding their deal and just wearing that's what they do. Nintendo will do the most manipulative, shitty, trashy things because they work from a place of pure greed, and because they're so fucking selfish, they don't understand that a rising tide raises all boats at once, right? Instead, they just want their boat to be raised and everyone else can go fuck themselves. That's how Nintendo thinks. And what's even worse is Nintendo makes good games. They make really fucking good games. And it would be way better. Their games would be way more popular than they already are if they just let people do things like create content on them. Greed is fucking killing MMOs. Yeah, no, it's always been killing MMOs, Resrock. Also, what's up? And it's going to get worse. Greed is going to get way worse in MMOs. The pay-to-win systems are pretty bad in ARPGs currently, and sooner or later you're going to start to see new MMOs that are released that are just poorly disguised payment systems.
So I mean, talking like factions, races, stuff like that, because you probably
Fuck yeah, race
have to
wars.
have an idea and stick to it, but then you hear different opinions from other people. Is it like something that you also take into consideration, even though it might go against your basic idea? Roll these answer.
Here you go. Like, you hear, every potential player wants something, and there's, hopefully millions of them, and everyone wants something different. And so it's impossible for us to give every person what they want. But, really often there's a lot of similar themes, right? And when we reduce it to the sort of core of like, what is the fantasy that people are looking for? What is the experience? We can then...
Yeah, you see, that's exactly what I said. Behind all the complaining and shit, there is like a core criticism that means you can develop on that and get better. It's hard telling friends, hey, you should try this game out. Oh yeah, that'll be $300. Yeah, but you see, Rezrock, that's the issue. It's, hey, you should try this game out. It's gonna be $50. But if you want the game to be good and enjoyable, then it's $300. Right, MMO skill shots and skins, you win. Dude, if they copy the exact same formula as League of Legends and turned it into an MMO, they would succeed. That's like, I'm not even joking. They could just reskin League as an MMO and they would be already miles ahead of other MMO games out there. I hope they don't do that. And I don't think they will. I think they've confirmed third person. Though I might be mixing that up with another MMO. But I think they probably will have the right formula down.
Take that and say, what's the best version of that we can deliver? And even better, we're not just going to give people what they say they want. We're going to try and figure out how we can over deliver. How can we get them something that blows their minds that like is also, oh my God, that's exactly what I wanted. That's the dream.
Okay, that's a good answer. So they'll take the shaft, but they won't neglect the balls.
Important that part. Not just giving people what they expect, or just like going, you got that, and this as well, and this. It's like, that's really important.
That's the soul of what we're trying to do. Is like ultimately, like we're in service of trying to realize the dreams of our players, but that's not always exactly what they're asking for. Sometimes it is about extracting the essence. It's like, what is the magic that you're seeing that we haven't seen yet, and how do we create it? And ultimately, I personally think that's Riot's superpower, especially like with League. We see it with Valorant. We see it with our games, how we respond to players. And the one thing we definitely can't do is dunk our head in the sand until we're shit.
Yeah.
And hopefully you get a little taste of that with,
Yeah. Which, by the way, I saw some things. I'm kidding. Literally, if I turn the camera like a little few inches, I'm gonna get nuked. Don't do it. So, one thing that's a big topic that I don't.
I think locked action cam would make it infinitely more viewable. I don't think there's no way they don't do an action cam of some kind, right? For reference, look how popular the action cam is in Guild Wars 2, right? People fucking love that thing. To me, I don't know, action cam fucks with me, personally, but I can see the appeal of why people like it. So I don't think Riot in particular is dumb enough to not put in an action cam, especially since it'll be an extra and that'll make their game stand out way more.
I don't know if you can answer is, the big old talk about like factions
If
and
they
races,
are doing
more
third
specifically
person.
like separating the player base, because there are some MMOs who give you the freedom of like, you can play with anyone, you can, there are no barriers. And then there are others who actually like split the community very specifically into like, maybe two parts that are battling. What's your like very vague general idea without confirming anything on like this kind of philosophy?
So there's this perfect saying I saw in one of the, a developer talk from one of the Zelda developers, which is, you can't just deliver exactly perfect realism or whatever. You're trying to shape something that feels real, feels believable, but is like actually making the thing you want. Right? So like, there are things that we want. We don't want, me and my best friend, we don't want people not to be able to play with each other. Obviously, that's like a bad, that's a problem. But we also want to, maybe capture the spirit and the kind of, one of the iconic elements of the League of Legends IP, where you've got this complex, factions, and there's, there's a lot of shades of gray, and there's a lot of interesting conflict, and there's a lot of, kind of ways that you or someone else might relate to different elements of it. And so we just try and take all of those factors, the things we want, the things that we want to be true in the experience or in the thematic or in the IP, and find a combination of them that works.
You want all those things that people love about our world, like the conflicts that are already there and the rivalries and stuff. You want to play that through. You want to see that.
But you also don't want to like lock people into like one side, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's really our job.
Not confirming anything.
That's a
Okay, so very vague, not confirming anything. What he's basically saying about not locking people in is he's saying they're probably going to have like a system where you can switch factions or change which group you're a part of over time, depending on what you want, which is probably a good thing, since if they did the copy-paste version of like World of Warcraft, Alliance versus Horde, or ESO, where there's 3 factions, or something else, I don't think it would work out as well, because they would probably get, they'd probably just get mocked for being like a copy. When it comes to like the complexity of things, though, there are so many different factions and groups and shit that they could pull from, that they could make like 25 factions and have each faction integrate or interact with another faction in a different way, right? I'd imagine it would mean cities would be like Dalaran for some people from X faction. No access to this corner if you are not X race. Yeah, probably something like that. Gonna head to bed. Glad. Yeah, night, dude. I'm glad to see that you're getting to bed at a reasonable time, Yogi, and not staying up until like 9 in the morning and ruining yourself. But yeah, good seeing you, dude. I think the other kind of complexity they're probably talking about here is they want there to be like an interplay between the different races. So there are certain things that Yordles should technically be able to do exclusively in the game, or things that only Sharimans should have access to, but not anyone else. So hopefully there's some kind of play there with the races as well. But the most important complexity that we can probably hope for in the future Riot MMO game, and I think this stems primarily from Arcane, is if they really want a high player base, if they really want to be like, the next big thing, what they need to focus on is Caitlyn, Vi. Like that's how they're gonna attract like mass appeal. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It's just speculation, but that's all I'm saying.
a perfect example because there's like, we talk about like 100 of these problems every day, right?
Yeah.
There's just always so many things. There's always trade-offs, but it's like you just try to take the pieces together, find a way to make it work. And, when we do well, you see the result and you're like, oh yeah, that's great. I'm getting what I want, and, and the game is good, and, it's fun to play or something like that.
The general talk is always about like, when the classic WoW came out, that one ignited the passion for like the very old school MMOs.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting how when classic WoW came out, it like once again became the king of MMOs, and like everyone suddenly realized that like all the innovations that came from the other MMOs,
I know what he's gonna say,
weren't really enough to like maybe give the MMO genre actually more value.
No, what it made people realize when classic WoW was released was it made people realize how vapid the modern MMO experience is. How having all these features and these conveniences and these pay-to-win systems and the WoW token and all these mounts you can buy off the store instead of having to work for, how empty it felt. Why would you bother to go and farm and spend your time and effort and energy going and getting the netherbound Drake in the Burning Crusade if you can just buy a fucking dragon that looks way better off of the store? It makes achievements feel vapid and empty. And going back to something like classic WoW, this was before Blizzard decided to change their minds and add in the WoW token. Going back to something like classic WoW, everything you did felt like progression. especially at endgame, when you got that new piece of purple gear, when you that legendary dropped and you got the roll, it fucking mattered so much. So much. And Classic WoW probably reminded a lot of people of that experience. And then they went and played retail WoW, and they were like, wow, holy shit. Nothing I do has any significant impact. Nothing I do here means anything at all. Why the fuck am I playing this game? And then they played another modern MMO, and the same thing happened.
Yeah. So what I got from this general idea, is like you're trying to make like a mix of like staying true to the core idea of MMOs while iterating in some ways.
I think it's really important that we look at what is working in the market, and then also evolve the expectations to see where we're going. And if you look at where WoW started, like classic MMO, I think all of us played many, many, many hours of classic WoW. And then you look at how the genre evolved over the course of post-classic WoW era, they were all chasing WoW. And so they were all looking at one specific thing and trying to make a better version of that thing. And now what we're trying to do is we're trying to say like, okay, what went right during that period? And what has changed in the games industry and our players' expectations up until that point? And look at both of those lenses and craft something that feels like it's the right evolution of it. So I think ultimately many people in the industry are seeing similar things, and so we're actually hoping that we can learn from some of the other games that launched in the meantime, but we do think it's going to have some changes and evolutions to that formula without completely throwing it out just for the sake of it.
Okay, so I think that's the right way to go about it, is to look at what is working and then throw out all the shit that isn't. The problem is, they might look at what is working as in these pay-to-win systems are getting a lot of money, and money speaks more than some guy on Twitter who's fucking mad about the pay-to-win system, i.e. me. So if they make more money off the pay-to-win systems and people keep on using them, then obviously they're going to be in the fucking game, because why wouldn't you if the large majority of people are paying you fuck tons of money to have it there? So I'm not concerned about what he said. I'm concerned about how they are measuring success from modern MMOs. So the thing I hate most about retail now is auto attacks mean nothing. So it's RSI City because they think clicks equals engagement. I'll tell you what you hate, Joe, right? You are missing something that every retail player is missing. It's novelty, right? You are missing the novelty of the experience. I can tell you right now, I can automatically play the sound of the classic WoW gunshot in my head, the vanilla WoW sound of a gun going off in my head. It doesn't matter where I am. That sound effect is ingrained in my brain because I played a hunter. I can tell you, like I can in my head, I can play the novelty of walking into Stormwind for the first time. I can play the novelty of the first time I experienced the Barrens, like the sounds, the experience, all of that shit. And you know what? In the modern game, your auto attacks mean nothing. Your progression means next to nothing because you blast through areas in like a few hours and it doesn't fucking matter. None of the leveling matters. All you're trying to do is get to end game where the real gaming experience is. It's a nightmare. I can get an erection from the first night health. Oh god, that's horrifying. It's fucking horrifying, Rezrock. God damn. Jesus. Don't remind me of that Goldshire bedroom. I was a young inexperienced boy the first time I walked into that room. And I saw some fucking RP going down because I chose an RP server. I was a stupid kid who didn't know what RP really meant until I went into that Goldshire bedroom. Upstairs, oh no, oh, that's some PTSD shit.
just personal take. I actually love the idea that the game has dedicated servers, because one thing that happened in WoW later on is at the moment they gave us like random matchmaking and stuff like that. That was a breaking point where if you are an asshole on a server, it didn't matter really. There were never nothing really happened to you. But if you are on a dedicated server and you behave badly, people know it about you, and it kind of like forms a really cool community, but it's kind of interesting that these days, I don't think there is a single MMO that actually has this whole structure.
Yeah, that's the thing.
100%. No one gives a shit if you're an asshole. They don't even remember your name after you've done something bad. Back in the old school MMOs, if you were a dick to the people around you, you would be ostracized as fuck. Your name would be on forums. People would be mad at you for years. People would be mad at you and they don't even know who you are. They just know the rest of the servers like, hey, be mad at this guy.
I think Mark nailed it early on when we were talking about trade-offs. This is like, ultimately, you can build games in different approaches, but they have really different trade-offs about that sense of identity and the sense of community that gets created. But then when you start to commoditize human interactions and like you're the same as any other bot that's walking by me, then you lose a lot of that. Mega Server also has some risk-on approaches. We actually have an engineer that worked on Guild Wars 2 and designed a lot of the Mega Server work. It has some of the like flaws and risks in that space. And the one thing that we definitely don't want to do is try and solve these solutions for absolutely
These motherfuckers stole even Guild Wars 2 devs. I can appreciate that.
everybody. We do want to have opinionated takes that have some trade-offs, but a lot of that essence of community and people feeling important and actually having these interactions matter with other people, those are values that we're excited to chase.
Now, I'm not gonna go into like races and classes. I think that's a very much dead end that we can't really talk about.
We're gonna skip the racism.
But when it comes to the world, you probably did take into consideration the scale of the world and like how you're gonna approach it. Are you leaning more towards like segmenting the world and kind of like play the safe route where you have a lot of open spaces, or are you ready to like round up like a piece of the content and like ship it in its entirety? Is that even a question you can talk about at all? What's your approach to like, you know, the world at launch?
Ultimately, one of the most important things for us is to realize the world of Runeterra that exists in our players' hearts. We are those people. Like we want to be in the world and we want to see it and we want to experience it. The path for this MMO in the long term will have that full world of Runeterra realized. So for us, it's just a question of how we get there, what the steps are, whether we start small, whether we start broad. We have some takes about where we want to go, but we have our North Star of like that full version of Runeterra, and we know we're going to get there. So it's just a question of the steps along the way.
I have two more questions.
Yeah, that's a non-answer.
When it comes to Riot, they always have like a very specific, almost specific artistic style, where it's like very stylized, very cartoony, but not exactly cartoony. Is it like is it something that you want to stick to in general?
They have to stick to it. I can answer this question. They have to stick to it because they did it in Arcane. They've done it in League. They've done it in Legends of Runeterra. They've done it in Hextech Mayhem to some degree. They've done it everywhere else. It would be a disservice to their brand to not have that kind of art style in place.
Do like very rather than realistic, is like the classic stylized style on
You
the
have
table
to
for
do
the
it.
MMO.
So
Especially for longevity.
Hopefully I can say excuse.
I don't know what you're going to say.
So we will be familiar, but something unique.
All right.
It works. This is a place where it's a big damn shame that you can't see the stuff that he's working on because it's so good.
Last question that I think we can talk about is how did this project start? Because usually at Riot, all the big things start as passion projects, be it, you know, game modes on League, EFT, really, you know, Legends of Runeterra. It's all like passion projects. How did the MMO project even like start?
I think the fairest way to say it is that massive parts of this company have been dreaming of making this game for our players for a long time. Obviously, Meryl trolled the world by asking whether an MMO should exist. The reason I came to Riot 7 years ago was to make an MMO. I would say different versions of like this space, what we've been thinking about and moving it forward, have existed in all of our hearts for a very long time.
I think
And eventually, I know. And honestly, eventually we just all started to get a bunch of those people together. And we're like, now,
At least from what he's saying, this sounds like what they've done is they found all the people who are super passionate about it and stole them from every company that they could. The second they start talking about the world, I realized that the whole MMORPG thing is a super important investment for the IP. As we move into the game space, that might be moving towards VR. Absolutely, dude. Oh my god. Can you imagine that the Riot MMO releases, it's not VR, and then just like 5 years down the line, they're like, oh, by the way, there's a VR update now. Can you fucking imagine? And you don't want a VR experience to look like dog shit. So you're forced into making a stylized art style that's going to stand the test of time. Oh man. Oh man, the world building is going to be super important if it ever gets integrated into VR. Oh yeah, it definitely makes sense. It doesn't just make sense on paper, it makes sense in practicality. And if they get to be the ones who said, we were the first large-scale VR MMORPG. Can you imagine? That's like not just whipping your cock out at the dinner table. That's fucking smacking Auntie Blizzard on the other side of the table with it without moving to the other side of the table. God damn. Everyone would remember that. Even when the game's gone, they would remember that.
Now is the time. We've got to make that investment.
And
Obviously, I can't tell you any dates or people, but it's been something that I think all of us have been chasing for a really long time.
And players have just been asking for it for such a long time. It's just like,
Hold on one second. Sorry, I'm eating while I'm doing this. Hey, what's up, Heretic? Yeah, lucky auntie, she gets to see the Riot cock flying across the table. It's so much bigger than I remember.
gotta listen to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
we're
obviously the magic when it's just like MMO win. Yeah.
One of the things I really do appreciate, though, like transparently speaking, is that the thing that we know about Riot, like one of the top line values, is we're not going to ship something that's perfectly fine. And so it took us a little while to get to the point where we're willing to start.
Perfectly fine for Riot currently is failure. Riot is in that position where they release bangers nonstop. The second they release something that's not like an actual banger, they're in deep shit. And they know that.
Project, but it was waiting until we're like, okay, now we have enough with the work on lore. We have enough in terms of the right people that is like, now is the time to finally make this and do it right. That was the thing that held off, is that we're like, company wasn't at the right place, the people aren't at the right place, the IP wasn't at the right place. Once we get all of those, Meryl's like, we need to do this thing. The thing that is most important to us really is that we make something that is exceptional, that is worthy of our players and the dreams that they have, and that it's okay that it takes a while.
Right.
That's the biggest risk, is that we're like, hey, we're doing this thing, and people are like, it's been 6 months, why haven't you shipped the thing yet?
You see, that's smart. That's smart thinking. Is you never, especially with MMOs, because delays happen all the time. If you never give people a release date, there's no one saying, oh, the game's going to be shit because they delayed X, Y, Z. If they just never give a release date and they just keep saying, it'll be done when it's done, that sounds so much better than, hey, so we're delaying the release for a year because it turns out that legs don't work. Right? No deadlines is better than giving deadlines. Always. Always. Especially with an MMORPG. If it takes them the next 5 years, then it takes them the next 5 years. But don't tell me it's going to take the next 5 years. And then it would actually have taken the next 7 years. DOA is terrifying. Agreed. 100% agreed. It's big brain for them to just not fucking tell us the date. That's like the biggest thing ever. Just do not tell us the date. And if you need to delay it, then it's an internal thing, not an external thing. Yeah, 200 mil wasted on 3 months. Man, it's something beautiful when you see just that much money evaporate into nothing. There's something special about it, because it's like watching a comet in the sky. Like, you're like, wow, that is impressively terrifying.
And it's like, well, I don't know. We're in service of all of you. We're in service of trying to make the best thing for you, and sometimes a little fire under our asses to get it out the door isn't a bad thing.
No pressure, but the Riot MMO right now is probably the most anticipated one in the market right now.
No pressure.
Yeah, pressure. Yeah.
100%.
I
Yeah.
feel like we've got the people who are at least gonna rise to the challenge and fucking fight that fight.
I mean, you all said many times that the team is really stacked.
Yeah.
Like you probably have veterans to like. I don't know what teams you really like. All of you worked on. But I assume it was a lot.
It's incredible.
It's really where are you guys?
Can you actually like say all of you like what actually
we worked on?
Yeah.
Let's see. What did you? Star Wars Galaxies, an unannounced MMO inside of Ensemble.
Oh, Star Wars Galaxy. Okay, that's all he had to say, buddy. Move on. He worked on Star Wars Galaxy. Okay.
Age of Empires 3, Halo Wars, Orcs Must Die, Hero Academy, Words with Friends. An unannounced MMO prototype inside of Riot a long time ago, Wild Rift, and then now this.
Obviously, I'm not this bad, but like,
Now you see, everyone after him's gonna look worse. He should have gone last.
I mean, I worked on. Yeah, I know, no kidding.
That's a time for flex, God.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of flex. Like, it's good. I mean, I worked on League of Legends for like almost a decade. I worked on Call of Duty
good.
before that, and
Fuck you. Get off the team. Fuck you. Out the door. You, Ponytail. It's time to leave. You worked on Call of Duty. How dare you? Nah,
Bunch
it's just,
of-
that's a knee-jerk reaction.
you know,
Sorry.
smaller kind of double-A games for a while before that.
But it can't be understated how important it is to have people who like know everything about the history of our players and the IP. Like that's massive. In many ways, more important than like a bunch of different bands.
So God, many years, many different things. It's so many. Legends of Runeterra. Let's see. Sims. I've worked on Sims for many years.
There's the law guy.
Some other MMOs. Some old ones, like one that I eventually got out, Gods and Heroes, back in the day.
I don't even know Gods and Heroes. I've never even heard of that one. Hold on. I've never even heard of Gods and Heroes. Why have I not heard of this? What the hell is this? Looks interesting. Obviously a Greek theme. I wonder what it was like. I'll have to spend some spare time looking into that.
And yeah, and like a number of smaller projects. Right.
Yeah. And most of my stuff before here, I've been here for 9 years. I was working freelance for quite a lot of years, writing books and doing things like that, doing some world building here and there for different games. And then most of my background before that comes from like tabletop. So like I worked at Games Workshop, so I was
Oh,
a
thank
games
you.
designer.
Thank you, Jesus. Oh, we've got a TTRPG guy in here. So, for anyone who doesn't know, tabletop people build the absolute best fucking worlds I've ever seen. There's like some random neck-bearded dude who's got a table that he's built a whole bunch of miniatures for, and he's got a whole story in his head, a whole like 500-year history for his D&D tabletop game that he's just ready to fucking blast out at you the second your character in the D&D game goes, oh, what does this thing mean? And then you know it's coming. You know that lore dump's coming, right? Tabletop guys are obsessed with making great worlds. So he's in the right position here.
and a writer and an art manager over there and working on like
Sutor and Terra. Okay, that-
40K, like,
See, if it came out at the same time as SWTOR, that makes sense as to why. I have no idea about it.
that was my sort of kickstart into the industry, really.
One of the things that I love most about this team, other than the fact that they're huge dreamers and like have massive ambitions, is that everybody has had their story in the games industry, which means nobody has the chip on their shoulder. Everybody is like, whatever is the right thing to do for the game, whatever is the right thing to do for players. There's not conversations about ego or identity or my idea or your idea. It's just like, all right, how do we make the best thing?
Did you hear that? There was one important word in what he said there. I want to see if you can guess the word. What word out of all of those that he said that's not involved in the game is important? I'll play it again. See if you can catch it.
Everybody is like, whatever is the right thing to do for the game, whatever is the right thing to do for players. There's not conversations about ego or identity or my idea or your idea. It's just like...
So there we go. He said it again. What word was it? It's a very important word. And people usually say this word when they're pissed off with other people who keep injecting this into a game. He said no identity. There it is. So he didn't say no identity politics. He said no identity. And he likely does mean identity politics, right? That might be what he meant. But it might not have anything to do with politics. But the idea of some storyteller, and you see this all the time in Hollywood now, some storyteller coming in and royally fucking everyone because they need to put some personal identity of theirs into something, into some story that would have been perfectly fine without it, ruins franchises. I mean, for a good example, look at The Witcher, right? For me, personally, I started watching season 3 of The Witcher, and it was unwatchable. I couldn't get through 2 episodes. I got to the 2nd episode, and I was like, oh, fuck, this is bad. And I binged my way through season 1 and 2 of that show, and I could barely get myself through two episodes of season 3, and it's because I can feel the identity bullshit of the writer or the director or someone on that team pushing for something. And I don't care what side or political ideology or something that they're pushing for. It's the fact that it's there in the first place, that they're pushing for something that's not there about the story, but about their personal fifis. Fuck, I hate that so bad.
All right, how do we make the best thing? Right. That is the most refreshing thing I've ever experienced on a game team. I'm surrounded by people smarter than me, and that's just like the best. It's so cool. Which is good, because this challenge is huge.
Oh yeah. You can't get, you honestly can't go bigger than MMO.
Yeah.
Like that's actually just the biggest genre.
Yeah.
You can probably tackle.
And so we put on like one of the IPs that has the most expectations.
Oh yeah.
As well, like no pressure.
It's literally the Harvest Travel.
It really is.
Let's go.
All right. Well, it was a really awesome interview where we did actually get some answers. We had
Trying not to get fired.
more than I expected, so I really do appreciate all of you. And I'm gonna do some funny editing, and I'm just gonna cut it off so you can just say goodbye.
Bye.
That was done really smoothly. That was actually a really good interview. He did a great job, especially with the cuts and stuff, to make sure that he didn't get in deep shit for thing. But it's good to see that all of the guys sitting at that table look like a part of their soul has been destroyed by video game development, because usually those are the guys who are so passionate about it that they will destroy their own mind, body, soul, and well-being to get that game out the door and in a good state. I'm pretty sure, based on the answers, the vibe I get is some of those guys would never forgive themselves if this game released poorly, right? And maybe that's just because Tencent, being a Chinese company that owns Riot, will take them out the back and give them the Tiananmen Square treatment. But I get the vibe that these guys are actually legitimately trying to do their best. So let's hope they stay with that. My big fear is that they get the same treatment that New World did, where if you look at New World, New World is actually full of super passionate devs who really, really give a shit about the game they make, but management royally fucked them from beginning to end. They weren't given enough time. They weren't given the resources they were needed. They weren't allowed to make the game changes that they wanted to. Every single time they told the management team that this shit's not ready, this is not something we can ship, they just got completely ignored, or management wanted like a 4-page essay on why these minor changes should be made. It's mind-numbing. You can have the best devs in the world, but if you treat them like shit like that, and you ruin their ability to work, you're gonna get shit. So my big concern is that you've got a bunch of good devs here that are going to get fucked by management, but hopefully not. Hopefully they saw the failures that New World went through and they were like, yeah, let's not do that. Let's release a banger instead. But yeah, okay, that increases my my hopes, at least for the Riot MMO. Hopefully, and I say this very cautiously. I hope, from the bottom of my heart, I hope that it's not pay to win. That's all I want.